down at my app, and I'm listening at 2.5 speed and had 30 hours to go or something crazy like that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How is this possible?
And I would say if you like this book, you should read Van Gogh, The Life.
I found this one so much better than Van Gogh.
My favorite animal is Phil yawning open mouth in the middle of someone else talking during the podcast. I know that, readers, suppose you were an idiot and suppose you were a member of Congress, but I repeat myself.
Let's go beyond the first page. Let's go beyond the first page.
Welcome back, Second Pagers. This is Beyond the First Page podcast with siblings Phoebe, Phil, and Isaac. I'm Phoebe.
I'm Phil.
I'm Isaac.
And this is Club Meeting 47, Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. And this is a book club style podcast that meets every other week to discuss a range of books and topics. So if you don't want Mark Twain to be ruined for you, we recommend that you read the book first and then come on and listen to the podcast. But since this is a biography, you could also just know
Listen to
a
the
little bit about Mark
podcast.
Twain and then listen to the podcast. Exactly.
Or just don't know about Mark Twain.
Or just Google him real quick.
Yeah, and then listen to the podcast. That's probably our recommendation to our listeners. But because he was the quote-unquote great American novelist, we wanted to open by asking, or I wanted to open by asking you both who, if you had to pick one American author to read for the rest of your life, who would it be? And mine would be Immortals. I did go back and forth between him and a few others just because he doesn't have a lot of books, so I'd be reading the same books on repeat, but the books he does have are really good, and hopefully he's coming out with more, so I'd have those to go off of. And Isaac, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, so I went the other route. I went more for volume and a great story. Michael Connelly was my author. He writes the Bosch series and the Mickey Haller series and now the Renee Ballard. He's still writing books, which is exciting if you're stuck reading one. Maybe less thought-provoking, but still a great story.
Yeah, I think Phil and I could have predicted that would have been your author. And I think a good choice. Yeah, every book he writes is entertaining, so you can't really go wrong with him. Phil, what about you?
Mine would be Stephen King. Stephen King is just so prolific, and he writes in every genre, and his books are very, very good. And every one that I've read. I've heard he has a couple misses, but I have not read them yet. He's very talented, so.
Yeah, also has a lot of volume, so that, kind of going on volume as well is important there. Yeah, cool. Well, Isaac, could you give us Mark Twain in 15 seconds?
Yeah, so this biography of Mark Twain was very expansive, covered birth to death and everyone and everything in between. Mm-hmm. Quick summary: born in 1835 in Missouri as Samuel Langhorne Clemens. So Mark Twain was a pen name, which I didn't know, which is cool. And from birth to death, he was funny. He was a trickster. He was very well traveled, which was another cool fun fact. Very good at writing, very bad at business, and could really hold a grudge. And most of those grudges were of his own making. And you learn a lot about those in this book. And then he ends up dying in Connecticut in 1910 as one of the great American voices.
Yeah. Yeah, very expansive. Definitely want to highlight that and our earlier comments of maybe just come on and listen to the podcast and hear a few thoughts that we had about Mark Twain. Because I think this book was just a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, it was way too long. It was
too
just
long.
So long. And it was so detailed. And it was just non-chronological as well. So it's just very hard to follow because it was very tangent driven.
You're certainly right that it was non-chronological. But for me, I was unable to discern what year things were taking place. But even more so the age that he was. And I know, Phil, you said yesterday, like I couldn't just do math. But I think it's important as the author to be able to say, like, at the age of 35, he was doing X, Y, Z, because you'd be hearing these in-depth descriptions of like his caretaker stealing from him, or his daughter going in and out of the asylum, his wife being sick. And you couldn't quite like grasp how long these things were occurring for, especially if you were listening. He would say the year at the beginning of the whole thing, and then he would go so in depth by the end. I felt like I couldn't quite follow. But you guys were saying also that he was describing other events that were not happening at the time that he was talking, like he was jumping back and forth in time, which made it really hard to follow.
Yeah, it wasn't, in my opinion, it was not chronological, nor was it broken up into different segments of his life. So like family life, business ventures, writing. I think either one would have been okay, but he kind of mixed the two and would go off into tangents onto these failed business ventures, leading one to another, and then would then jump back 7 to 15 years and start talking about family again. But so it was like kind of a mixture of both. So I did not like that at all.
No.
I thought
I can't imagine who would.
I personally thought this could be 4 different books. I don't know who gets any value out of a book this big as just a casual
read
reader.
4 different books back to back about this. I think I was pretty done after the first quarter of the book, so I wouldn't have gotten to
do
the
it
last
back to
3.
back. You would pick an
era of his life.
Or its
exactly, like,
subject.
yeah, I
Right.
think a great example of a biography is Mornings on Horseback. That's my recommendation that we can get into later. But that is just the like upbringing of Teddy Roosevelt. This guy, it's 300 pages, interesting, fun stories, cool, and then you're done. This
Right.
I look down at my app and I'm listening at 2.5 speed and had 30 hours to go or something crazy like that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How is this possible?
Like, who is reading this book, honestly? Who, like, genuinely? Message us in the comments who is reading.
Obama.
Yeah, right.
But he's
Well, his
retired. He's got a lot of time on his hands.
What's he done with his life?
Well, and his memoir is just as long, so maybe he thinks that's the appropriate length for his first part of his memoir. I think is just as long. So,
Yeah, well.
yeah, I think that was probably, well, there was many critiques, but I think that probably was my biggest, the length, and then just trying to figure out when things were happening. I also, this is a hot take, like I don't think there could be 4 books because I did not find him to be in any way interesting.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree with that at all.
Yeah,
I think he
disagree
was
with
very interesting. He was like writing best-selling books at the same time as like touring the world, writing provocative articles, having business ventures, going bankrupt, getting a lot of money, like meeting with presidents, having a daughter with epilepsy. I think almost all of his life was very interesting. I have no idea how you thought that.
If you took out his business ventures and his
The
I guess
lecture
he was
series.
traveling because he was lecturing in some parts, but like just his travel and the people he associated with on that travel, I think merited. If he had just done that and been the great American novelist, he would have been fascinating.
I mean, he
But
met
then, like Phil
he-
said, he had all this, a lot of other stuff in there too.
Yeah.
him and Walt
Yeah.
Whitman were just eating dinner sometime or whatever. It like wasn't even a story. It was just like when he used to get dinner with Walt Whitman. That's sort of very cool. Vienna also at this time was like a very hot spot for like that was
Culture.
arguably the intellectual capital of the world. Almost inarguably the philosophical capital of the world. You had Freud there. I think Camus spent a bunch of time there. The only reason I know this is because my wife is a philosopher and researched Vienna a bunch. So we went to all the coffee shops where they used to sit and ponder on our honeymoon. But yeah, it was a happening place.
I just think that's like saying like the Kardashians are hanging out with being associated with Kanye West now. Like, of course he was hanging out with Walt Whitman. He was also a famous writer. That doesn't impress me. Like, that to me wasn't interesting. Nothing was interesting because every stupid thing that he did that caused drama in his life was of his own stupid making. Even to a point, his wife and daughter being sick, I just feel like that was all of their own invention almost. And I don't know if it was just
The daughter was
authors-
epileptic, Phoebe.
Not that daughter, but all the other daughters that just died. The one just died of nothing.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like it was fake. What? She died.
I just feel like they were very dramatic for no reason. Even like Mark
I just
Twain
think, Phoebe, 100%. This is exactly how Ron Chernow wrote this book. This was not, like, if you take these things on a page, his daughter and wife died in the same year. And Chernow's like, he was just swallowing. Like, the man is literally depressed. Like, he's going through this huge crisis. Yeah. And Chernow is writing this like it's just fact. Like, oh, he's lazy. Can't write about anything but himself. So hypocritical and so self-centered. Dude, his wife and daughter just died.
Yeah.
That's how this book was written, and it was so unfair to Mark Twain. I mean, I think your takeaway from that was a realization of the writing.
The author.
Like, yeah.
I can see your point. It's just like I have nothing else to go off of, and I will not ever read another biography about Mark Twain because it's just too much. I already know
there's
more
no
than
need
I wanted.
to. What
Right.
more could you learn? There's nothing else out there.
Yeah.
But it feels saying that what I'm hearing is you're saying
I
there
just
was a
think your
huge bias.
skew was, there was just such a big bias. There was,
and I didn't really pick
possibly.
up on that, to be honest.
I think, also just like, it was the late 1800s, early 1900s. Like, the medicine wasn't as good. So they were like,
Right.
we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but like also
But
though, he
how
was
do
willing.
all three of the people in your family, how are all three of them so sick?
Phoebe, families used to have 12 kids because 8 of them would die. Like, this was a thing you did.
Okay.
Like, they
maybe
made
it's
it
just
to
not...
40s. Like, this was very common that you had. I mean, his older brother died. Like, you had all these deaths. I think that also, so my take on this book, and I will read it for the listeners just because I do think it was egregious. But I think that Mark Twain was painted very, very poorly in this book. I think that there was basically the author would cite, he would have quotes, and then his takeaways were just so biased and did not follow his actual primary sources. So I would say that if he was just to do this and write all this and not include any primary sources, I wouldn't really have seen it. I would have been like, wow, okay, I guess Mark Twain was the worst. But it leads me to believe that he's trying to include primary sources that back him up, and even then cannot do that. He makes 2 quotes from the newsletter. He goes, so this is when Clara's auditioning, and Mark Twain funded this all. So his daughter, Clara, while Clara was evidently undergoing the sufferings of a newcomer to the stage yesterday, the Washington Times noted, quote, after her first numbers, her singing was in every way delightful, end quote. The next sentence, which has nothing to do with that, is whether due to his crippling gout or as a mark of disapproval, her father stayed at home. And it's just like, he was literally crippled with gout, but the author's just inserting that he's disapproving his daughter, even though he literally funded her entire singing career, and she was not talented. Like,
okay, but he was also crippled with gout, traveling the world on the tour with his wife and his other daughter, doing.
But he stayed
tours.
at home for multiple weeks when he was crippled with gout. Like, gout is something that comes around and it's very bad, and you can't get it. It's like migraines. Like, you can suffer from migraines and still do stuff. But when you have the migraine, you do not do stuff.
Yeah, I think you really bit off into, or not bit off, but really
dug in.
Got or you really noticed the potential bias of it, because I really didn't have the takeaway. My ultimate takeaway was, 1, why are we hearing about Clara's subpar music career?
Facts.
Clara Clemens is a nobody.
Right.
So let's give her maybe a couple pages. We can hear about all his children, and then cut this book by 4 hours at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then secondly, my like takeaway was not the biases, and I didn't leave this book having like a bad view of Mark Twain. I left it being like, wow, Mark Twain was he was like one of those people that I feel like maybe you don't notice it in your era, but like you like look back at history of those people who just kind of do it all. And I don't know if that is gone now or you just don't notice it. You don't know
Until
those
it's
people
gone.
because they're
Until
doing
they're
it
doing
right
it.
now.
Right.
But he was kind of like the original, and this is very timely for us with the whole Jimmy Kimmel like firing. That
For sure. The
he
original
was like
comic.
the original late night talk show host.
Yeah.
Like he was
Yeah.
unqualified
it
to be giving opinions, but everyone was listening to his opinion.
And he hated, and he
And
hated
he
the
was
president.
making. Yeah, he was. He hated like politics in general, but couldn't not talk about it.
About politics. Yeah.
And he made it funny while he was doing it.
Yeah, I had
I
the
do
same
think that he
impression.
was generally hilarious, though, and I think that Chernow
he
cuts
got
Oh,
him.
he was
funnier.
funny.
I think
He got
Cher-
funnier as the
Chernow-
book went on.
Yeah, for sure. But Chernow does
Yeah.
the same bullcrap with that, where he's like his dry wit, like he just kept making this, and he's just like undercutting his jokes every time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was
He-
genuinely hilarious.
He could have written more stuff about Twain and put in more stuff to really capture his humor better. Because some of the lines, like especially at the end, I had to
So
pause and be
funny.
like, wait a second, that was actually so clever.
Yeah.
Like one of the ones that I loved, which of course I'm listening at like 2.5 speed so you can hear every third word or whatever. But and you're just like, please let this end. One of the quotes about one of the landlords, like as his wife is dying,
Oh, in Italy, when they went to Italy.
in Italy, and she's like, let me find where I wrote like the summary of it. I was losing my faith in hell until I met the Countess. Like, he just like rattles that off. That's so
so
insulting and so funny and so witty. Like,
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
good.
I mean, he was the original comedian. I was telling someone at work about this, and I was like, he was the he was the OG stand-up comic, basically. He would go around these lectures, which was basically just him doing comedy, and they're like, I don't think that's true. You just made that up. I'm like, I just read a whole 40-hour book about him. I don't know who was doing this before him. And if you Google it, he is credited with to kind of invent this concept of travel comedy or touring going on tour to talk to crowds and make them laugh. So yeah,
I think he added the humor. The lecture series was, I think,
A thing.
alive and well,
right.
but he put the humor spin on it.
Which now we don't do. There's not like lectures. People aren't widely attending lecture series unless you're in an academic world. Like everyone goes to comedy shows, So that kind of outlasted that whole trend, I think. Maybe I'm just not in that circuit, but Phil would know more than me.
Yeah, no, I think that lecture series are very like academic now. But yeah, I think that he was generally very funny. The last thing that I want to say about the bias, though, I mean, one, I do think like insofar as race relations, he was 100 years ahead of his time for like growing up in the Confederate South, serving as a Confederate officer in the Civil War, and then taking away that from that background, being so radically progressive about race, and then later in his life about indigenous people. Pretty incredible. And I think he's sort of short shrifted by Chernow there. But I will say that the biggest, like the coup de grace of this, like Rob Chernow hates Mark Twain, was the entire thing at the end when he gets swindled by Isabel, who is basically his like head maid, secretary, sort of combined. And
She's like a surrogate wife.
yeah, but like also was painted that way. Could have just been painted as a servant. Like she loved him and sort of weird about it, actually.
She was
but
so
Chernow's entire thing was like he mistreated her so badly, and the only reason he got into this financial trouble is because he couldn't take care of himself. First of all, he's an 80-year-old man who's trying to manage an estate, so not really that crazy. Second of all, he lived in a time where he's had servants his entire life, so like sort of makes sense that like a 1900s man is not able to cook for himself. Whatever. Then he's like, the only reason she stole from him is because he underpaid her. And then
That was
you
funny,
hear
that narrative.
yeah, he was like, she was so underpaid and underappreciated. And then what you don't realize, and okay, you probably missed it at 2.5 speed, was the quote from his daughter being like, Isabel rejected the 3 wage increases that Twain offered her. And it's just like, sure, now you made this whole narrative about her stealing
Her being
because she was underpaid, and he offered her wage increases. Like, bro, what is happening?
I mean,
that was
Mark
just
Twain
BS.
was
That
bad
was
at
like,
business from the start, though. Like, on the
Yeah.
other hand, I mean, yes, Phil, I
I
did not,
agree with you on
Yeah,
that
I didn't.
segment of the biasy, but
Yeah, and I didn't think anything. Like, I thought that was an effed up thing that they did to him, for sure. I think he.
but I
there-
do
it was
think that was
weird.
painted as like his fault, sort of.
Yeah, and I think it was weird that he was allowing her to handle the finances, his daughter's finance. That's all hard to understand because like a 2 adult women getting financed by their parents is just something I can't, like, I don't understand the complexities of that as a woman in today's day and age. So I don't really understand what that was supposed to have looked like. I can imagine that it would have been like a running of his finances would have been delegated to someone like his secretary for his daughters to go through. The fact that it was a woman maybe bothered them, and the fact that they already didn't like her because they thought she was a snake was maybe problematic. I didn't get any bias about that. I do think Mark Twain did sign some documents that he should not have, it sounds like. And that happened throughout his life, regardless of his age or the circumstance.
Mark Twain should have hired a business manager the moment he published his first book and never thought about anything except publishing books
Writing.
again and been on a stipend of
But
his
here's
own
the
making.
thing. I don't think this is a fair take. I actually think, taken in context, he was a horrible businessman, for sure.
Yeah.
But this was a day and age where, like, the second person to have the railroad reach the Pacific made no money. But, like, the first person was the richest man in the world. This was a day and age of financing and just, like, going for broke on these inventions. I don't think these ideas were that bad. Like, they were good ideas. He just picked the wrong people.
He got taken for the equivalent of $10 million. I got taken for, $50,000, $60,000 by a contractor, and I feel like a moron.
Yeah.
The present day $10 million over years.
Yeah.
But
it's
you
like
could
at
have
some
done
point you had
research
to know,
on
sir.
on the guy. The infrastructure did not exist. Like, this was the era of snake oil salesmen. That's where this comes from. Like, this time.
Yeah. I don't
don't know
really
if-
have that much sympathy for him because I feel like he did it to himself more. And
No, I don't
they
have sympathy
refused
for
to,
him either.
adjust their lifestyle or like if they
Yes.
traveled.
Yeah,
They're like
I mean,
in
That was
super debt,
bad.
and they're like, "Oh,
We need
we
the
have to
biggest
like cut
mansion."
back. We have to cut back on our."
that
debt."
was
So we
also, like, a
traveled
bit
Europe and had servants and like.
But that was a bit confusing too, because she never exceeded her inheritance.
No,
So,
I
like,
think she did.
No, she didn't. At the end, it was like Libby's inheritance was running low. So, like, this entire time where they're
They
painted
would
as,
have
like,
if he
dead
didn't
broke.
If he didn't get out.
Okay, but they
Well, he
didn't.
was.
Is the
His
thing.
wife wasn't.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
a bit confused. Yes, no, for sure, how it is written in the book, he sounds like an idiot. I'm just trying to abstract a little bit. Because they were doing this, his wife was rich the entire time. He could just go on the lecture circuit and make a ton of money anytime he wanted. I think Chernow made that very clear. So
Yeah.
this, like, financial destitution that he talks about
He was like, well, he
was,
did
like,
file
not
for
Well, the
bankruptcy.
problem-
materialized.
He
No, it
filed for
definitely was, and
bankruptcy,
he
Phil.
was
His
worse. The
business
thing
filed
is
for
that I didn't
bankruptcy.
get.
He did not.
Are you
Well,
sure
I don't know
about
the
that?
semantics. Yeah, I'm
because
not sure about that either.
his publishing house filed for bankruptcy. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he himself had to file for
No,
bankruptcy.
you cannot owe your. He couldn't have done that with Libby if like it was
because
him.
it was all in her
like personal
name.
bankruptcy. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, he did make this the whole lecture. Like, if he was worried about money, why did he not just ever? I mean, this is all like doesn't matter because
Yeah.
he turned out fine. But I was just like, so many times throughout the book, you're just like, just go on the lecture series,
Right.
and
Yeah.
This is what
you're
you're good
already
at.
richer than. Like, I never realized how wealthy he was, but then they started putting it into present day
Present
money,
day.
and he was making. I mean, they were living off of like $800,000 a month inheritance or something, or a
Well,
year inheritance.
that's
I
where
don't know.
I
It was
was, like,
crazy.
When
Just,
he
like,
was like
hit the
20,
lecture
he
circuit.
bought the Buffalo newspaper, and he's like for $25,000, and I was like, I don't know if I could buy something for $25,000. And hot dogs used to cost 2 cents back then in a baseball game. So yeah, the inflation on that is crazy. It's like putting up $500,000 when you're 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just like a frustrating. You were just like frustrated at him,
With him.
being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
dude, stop. Just go stick to what you're good at. You've proven what you're good at.
Right. But he was never really happy with that, I don't think.
But that's, gosh,
It was
I know,
just the
I
time.
know. No,
You
I'm
were
not
saying
saying
it's the
it's just the
bias.
time. I'm saying it's the bias. Even he has this whole thing about how Twain was a Shakespeare conspiracy theorist, right? So he has this
Yeah, I
thing
sort
where
of
this
zoned
is
out during that.
okay. So this is like a thing where basically a lot of people
He thought
believe
he
that I
wasn't
think
real.
Francis Bacon wrote Shakespeare's
Yeah.
novels because Bacon was very educated. Shakespeare was just like some regular merchant.
Commoner.
And a lot of it is like, but in back then, if you were educated in like a royalty, writing was looked down upon. So they're like, he published under a different name because he couldn't have dealt with it. Whatever. It's actually not that wild of a conspiracy. Like, I mean, I don't think it's true, but it's not crazy.
Because
And-
Shakespeare still existed. It was just this other guy, essentially.
Right, writing.
Yeah.
But Chernow just goes, the only reason Twain believed that is because Twain was not imaginative enough to write about stories that were not about himself. That is a quote. Like, I will find that while you
I
guys
remember.
discuss. And like,
No, I remember him saying that.
like what? Like, where's this shade coming from?
Where is it coming from? Like, what's Ron
I don't
Chernow's
know.
beef?
I think Chernow's got. I want to do some deep digging on what he's got
Somebody
against
tell
Mark
us
Twain.
in the comments, what does Chernow have against
Again,
Mark
though,
Twain?
Phil, I think you're making great points. I didn't walk away from this
With
book
that.
feeling that way, though. So
No, it's not like super.
it's that that's like
obvious,
a almost like a not to say your feelings aren't valid or whatever, but like
No.
this seems somewhat personal to you. Whereas
know,
I'm
but
like
that's the thing,
I'm not feeling. I didn't think he was like shit on at all, except for when I personally think he was deservingly shit on in
the
both
business.
his failed business ventures and the creepy little thing with the girls at the end.
Yeah.
No, that was definitely
Creepy.
Yes, that was
And
creepy.
the rest of it, I walked away being like, wow, Mark Twain. I really appreciated a couple things that I thought were highlighted well from Mark Twain.
Yes. tell us.
His his like unabashedness and willingness to change his view on
Viewpoints.
things.
Yeah.
So
To
one
the point of seeming
was
hypocritical, in my opinion, but
yes,
continue.
Yes.
So
but
it
we
was
all
also
did-
it was almost to a detriment sometimes, but like
Was it
overall,
written like that?
he progressed from, like Phil said, the Confederate soldier to a pretty outspoken
Abolitionist.
and
Civil rights advocate.
anti-racism civil rights activist. And like I know we talked about this a little bit, or I think you did, Phil, but like Huck Finn was, Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, a lot of people in today's day and age, because it uses the N-word so much, don't want it being taught. And we read James at the beginning of this year. Percival Everett came out and said, like, if you do not want Huck Finn read, you haven't read Huck Finn. It is a anti-slavery book. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think the author talks about how he grew like pretty quickly to respect African Americans but was a little slow on the indigenous, like always had this like for native indigenous,
Weird.
then did that
Yeah.
world tour,
And
met
went to
some
Australia.
Australian Aboriginals, and then
Yeah.
like kind of changed his viewpoint on that. But then he was still super friendly and complimentive of the British Empire. So then you're kind of like, all right, which one are
Which
you
do you-
feeling?
I think he grew accustomed to Britain as a whole. I think he was very anti-imperialistic the
He
entire
was
time.
anti-imperialist, but only ever said mostly good things about the British Empire.
Yeah, like it was a very
He
back
had
and
some very
forth.
contradicting quotes, which I haven't written down.
Yeah, I
but-
had that same sentiment coming out of it. Like it was almost like he was against imperialism and capitalism, but then he also profited significantly from them. And
I
had all
thought
these
that
ties
Which
to
I
the
think
president.
he's a-
self-aware. He said that. He said that himself. He was like, I
Peace.
have profited quite a bit. And
Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
a really awesome thing to say that most people are like, three of us probably feel that way.
Yeah.
Like,
Right, like
You
you're
know, like,
against
it-
it, but
there's
you're
a lot of-
profiting from it.
yeah, but I want to own rental properties. I want to own a business. I
ask
get
not what you can
taxpayer
do about
money
the
from the
patriarchy.
DoD.
Ask what the
Like-
patriarchy can do for you.
Yeah, so
have to
you're
cut that
you're
out.
caught in this juxtaposition that is tough to settle
It's-
within
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't shy away from that. Whereas like most, I hate these freaking politicians are like, well, my grandfather was a steel worker and had two left feet and walked uphill both ways. And now look where we come. It's
Yeah.
like,
Or any celebrity. Yeah.
yeah, just say what it is. You probably worked pretty hard,
benefited.
got where you were, and you are benefiting from the system.
Yeah.
Now you can either bring that system down and make it better, or just keep on going
Keep
to make
feeding into
yourself.
it.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy is
Which-
the worst for sure.
Yeah.
But then I also loved some of his quotes about just like American politics, and I also think very timely. Just it seems like, you read some of
History
these books
repeats
and
itself.
yeah, 100%. Like he is complaining about the same problems that like we're complaining about now, which like I guess sucks because nothing's changed, but also
Well, I
maybe
do
is
think that
okay because
actually,
like the wheel's still
Life
turning.
goes
I don't know.
on. Yeah.
to quote Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that I think is also that like this is a very specific time in history that our time is rhyming with, because William Jennings Bryan was Americans' first huge populist. He was the definition of a populist politician. And he lost the presidential election like 4 times, but by slimmer and slimmer. And he finally got beat by McKinley and then Teddy Roosevelt. But I mean, that was like the day. This was the age of populism.
He was so quotable. I think, Isaac, funny you commented on our shared document that we have that you had the same quote, but it was funny the quote he had. Reader, suppose you were an idiot and suppose you were a member of Congress, but I repeat myself. Just like such a funny and again, very apt, I feel, for today's
Yeah.
age. The fact
There
that
was
he
a
was
couple
smoking when
more-
he was 8 years old.
I love that.
That was like ridiculous. But Isaac, you were gonna say a couple more quotes.
Yeah, there was a couple more less funny, but more just like I really latched on to his role in politics. I thought it was
Very interesting.
I thought it was the coolest part of the book and learning about for me. So one of his quotes was, "We have thrown away the most valuable asset we had: the individual's right to oppose both flag and country when he believed them to be in the wrong. We have thrown it away, and with it, all that was really respectable about that grotesque and laughable word, patriotism," which I resonate with quite a bit. And then, if you could work the multiplication table into a Democratic platform, the Republicans would vote it down at the election. And this was him talking about like nobody is agreeing just for the sake of
not agreeing
disagreeing, or
right.
like them being on opposite sides.
Yeah.
And he also had another one which I couldn't find, about essentially everyone has morals 364 days of the year, and then they go to the polls and vote away their
Morals and one day. Yeah, I remember that quote too. That's funny. So overall rating then, what would you say?
I give it 2.
I'm just going to give it a 1. I mean, I think that in our in our book club, for sure a 1. We've read a lot of bangers, and to not give this a 1, like I'd never give a 1 then.
Yeah. Good point. Maybe I'll give a 1 too. Then I was going to give a 2, but you're right, Phil. I think the only thing is I did learn about Mark Twain, and whether I wanted to learn every intricacy of his life or not, I know it now.
That's too low of a bar for a biography. I'm sorry. I could have written a
that I
biography
read
where
the
you'd learn
book.
about Mark Twain.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. A 1. Good point. And I would say if you like this book, you should read Van Gogh, The Life.
Yeah.
I found this one so much better than Van Gogh, The Life.
That's because Mark Twain,
Mark
as
Twain
a
was
person
just better
was
than
more,
Van Gogh.
Yes.
Yeah.
He
Van
was
Gogh
less
sucked.
crazy. But listening to Mark Twain's business debacles was like listening to Van Gogh not wanting to paint.
It was a
Whenever
bit
his brother was like,
much.
just paint. And he was like, no, I won't paint.
I need to hire another model.
Yeah.
Isaac, what about you? What would you recommend if readers liked Mark Twain by Ron Chernow?
So I said it earlier, Mornings on Horseback by David McCullough. It's a biography of Teddy Roosevelt, Mark Twain's favorite guy. But it's just a segment of his life. It's his upbringing up to him being elected president. Or maybe I think you learn that he becomes the governor of New York, and that's like it. So it's
Okay.
a short period of time, very digestible. I think maybe my favorite biography that I've read of somebody.
That sounds interesting, Isaac. I would love to learn more about Teddy Roosevelt and maybe just less of his life, more digestible than this book, which would be good. Phil, what about you? What would you recommend?
I do Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. It's about the Sackler family and the opioid epidemic in Purdue Pharma.
I mean, that's just so much better written than this book, but in my opinion. But great book. Really like that one. Isaac, before we go, just want to give our listeners an idea of what we'll be reading for next time that we meet, and that is We Used to Live Here. Would you mind just telling us a bit about that book?
Yes, and we're reading this for Halloween. So it's a psychological horror novel about a young couple, Eve and Charlie, who move into an old Victorian home to flip it, and their lives end up upended when a mysterious family, the Fausts, arrive claiming to be the previous residents, and as strange contradictory events occur, Eve's grip on reality blurs, and she questions if the family is part of a sinister plot or if she's experiencing a psychological delusion.
Yeah, definitely not a typical beyond the first page book pick. So I'm hoping we can get some fans who love thrillers and kind of horror involved, especially around Halloween. So hopefully everyone enjoys that. And I think the three of us will be a little scared because we are all 3 big scaredy cats. So good book for us too around Halloween. This is your bi-weekly reminder to call someone that you love, tell them that you love them, tell them about a good book that you have recently read. It likely won't be Mark Twain, but they should come on and just listen to us talk about the book. And until we meet again, stay classy, second pagers. We'll see you later.
All right, bye guys.
See you guys.